I wondered if you were going to say that because it's like a phenomenon,
really,
and I love that you just came clean and were honest about
outed
that.
myself. It's
Fantastic.
really good.
Your friends are going to
I
tease
like
you.
to sing it all the time.
You sing it out? Fantastic.
Like to the point where my friends are like, okay, you can shut up now.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Humphreys, and this is The Pursuit, where I help you in your journey, your hustle, and your climb to be your best self and put out your best work. After all, I'm still hustling for that too, guys. So I sit down and interview today's most successful celebrities, executives, and entrepreneurs, and I break down success for the rest of us. Let's dive into this episode with
Simon Sinek. If you aren't familiar with Simon Sinek's name, you're probably familiar with his first book and the movement he created called Start With Why. You may also recognize his face from the same TED Talk, which has been viewed over 28 million times. He is the New York Times bestselling author of Leaders Eat Last, and he is an international sought-after speaker, not just spreading an idea, but leading a crusade. His refreshing views on business and leadership have attracted meetings and speaking engagements with organizations like NBC, 3M, Costco, Ernst & Young, and he's addressed the United Nations, the United States Congress, and the senior leadership of the United States Air Force, Marine Corps, and Army. We know why he created this movement, but I wanted to learn how. So I sat down and asked him all about how to create a movement at the Ernst & Young offices in New York City. This is a dream come true for me. I read your book years ago. This is so cool, so thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And I know my audience is freaking out. Everyone loves Start With Why and could not believe that I got to sit and talk with you today. So I want to start, though, back at the beginning because I listened to a lot of interviews and everyone starts kind of at the 3-month of depression. You've been in your business for a few years. But I would like to hold the phone and say that you had you went out on your own and beat the odds. So I'd like to talk about that for a little bit first because you did eventually make the decision to go out on your own and you grew your business and you made it past the 3-year point. So what do you think were some of the keys to the success of that at the beginning?
I'm only successful because of other people. I mean, in the early days, when I just started my business, I was pretty much convinced it was me. And everyone else was helping me out, But I can tell you with hindsight that the reason my business took a nosedive, because my whole trajectory changed. The first 3 years of my business were fun and exciting, and we sort of beat the statistic that, the overwhelming number of us supposed to go out of business, and I didn't. And my fourth year was very difficult. My fourth year was very different, and that's where, when you're running on force of personality, where you're chief cook and bottle washer, you're making every sales call, you're doing the product, you're offering the service, You're doing everything. At some point, you reach a level where, especially if you've survived for a few years, that you now have to ask other people for help. So you have to hire people, right? And the stress of letting go or trying to do everything, which is demoralizing for people who you bring on, and then needing structure. What is the actual structure of the business? It's not just you doing everything. And that's where I failed. I was terrible at structure. I continue to be terrible at structure. and really became very, very difficult for me to grow my business. It became very, very stressful. And I really hit a dark patch. And that's when I learned the most valuable lesson, I think, of my career, which is I don't have to know all the answers. And when I don't have to pretend that I do. And a willingness to admit that I needed help, that I didn't know, I knew this, but I didn't know that, allowed me to seek help and accept it when it was offered. And I realize we're all surrounded by people who are plenty willing to help us, but because so many of us spend so much of our time lying, hiding, and faking, people don't offer us their help because they just don't think we need it.
Yeah.
Because we've presented ourselves in this picture that we're good to go. And so we leave ourselves by ourselves. It's our own fault. And so when I was able to stop lying, hiding, and faking, and was able to say, really good at this, really bad at that, and it wasn't a depressing thing, it was just like an admission, people came up all over, go, I could totally help you with that. And that's when my real trajectory took off, was when I realized that it's a team sport, and I have to be really good at the thing that I'm good at, and I have to be willing to help those succeed at what they're good at and allow others to help me succeed as well at what I'm good at. And so it's that wonderful, wonderful sort of relationship that we all have each other where we commit ourselves to seeing each other succeed. That is the reason I find myself where I am today.
Wow. So at that point, you discovered that businesses all function with three things: what we do, how we do it, and why we do it.
Yep.
So this started this whole why phenomenon that you launched. But was that like you sitting there writing on a napkin? Was this you decide to start reading books? I mean, how did it start?
You know, it always sounds like it's an invention or like there was some sort of revolution and, you know, you hit your head on the bathtub and there you have it's not like that. These ideas, like all good ideas, are evolutionary. And I was already tinkering with something that looked like the golden circle, simply to explain why some marketing worked and some marketing didn't. And it was really good to help me sort of start a PowerPoint presentation.
Right.
But the theory was basically there. And it didn't, you know, as I learned more, I started to learn about the biology of human decision making. And that set off a spark that, oh my goodness, this is much bigger than marketing. This is our lives, this is our careers, this is biology, this is how we make decisions. That's when I realized the power of what I had sitting on the shelf. And then I applied the scientific sort of methodology, which is, I had this theory, let's test it. Let's wait for the theory to fail. And so people would come to me and say, will this work in, you know, big business? I'm like, I don't know, let's try. Will it work in this industry? I don't know, let's try. Will it work in politics? I don't know, let's try. And it kept working. And that's when I realized it was really something very, very special.
So people start asking you to share, help them figure out their why, and it gets bigger and bigger. When did you decide, all right, I've got to sit and write this down?
Yeah.
And do you consider yourself a writer?
Yeah.
I mean, were you already writing lots of things? And tell us about your process.
Not a writer. Never imagined being a writer. Never fantasized about being a writer. But as I said, other people who believed what I believed, I got very, very, very good at talking about what I believed and stopped completely talking about what I did. People come to say, what do you do? And I wouldn't say what I did, I would tell them what I believed. And literally, I started practicing the things that I eventually wrote about, which is I started with why. And when you do that, it attracts people who believe what you believe. And so the way the book came about is a friend of mine who knew what I believed, and I was sharing my ideas with her, said, you have to write this down. And I shrugged. And she said, I'll introduce you to an agent. And I shrugged. And then I had an agent. And somebody else said, I want to introduce you to an editor friend I had. And I shrugged. I said, okay. And the editor talked to me. He said, I want to introduce you to a publisher. So my meeting with the publisher actually wasn't set up by my agent.
Wow.
And I ended up having a 29-minute meeting with Adrian Zackheim, who's the god of business publishing. He's the original publisher from Good to Great. He came up with the title and everything.
Wow.
And I'm in this 29-minute meeting with him. And 3 days later, they offered me a book deal. And I never presented myself as anything that I was not, and I just would tell people what I believed and what I imagined the world could be based on this little idea. And people who believed what I believed wanted to help. And so he helped me by offering me the opportunity to share my idea on a much broader scale. He absolutely took a bet on me. I was an unknown personality. I didn't have much of a platform, which is what they always tell you need. And he took a bet.
Wow.
And so I'm very, very, very lucky and very, very grateful to him for that bet.
And I mean, a great bet to take, obviously. I mean, it's worldwide. I mean, I feel like I haven't come across anyone who hasn't heard of it or doesn't know. Everybody knows. One of the most popular TED Talks of all time. I mean, just congratulations.
Thank you.
But so what's interesting is your why. Tell everyone your why.
To inspire people to do the things that inspire them, so together we can change our world.
Awesome. Ooh, don't you love it? But what about people who are like, that's great to have a why, but like, we have to do work. For example, there's a lot of grunt work. There's jobs that anyone would hate doing. What do you say to them?
So there's two questions there. I don't believe the why is the end-all be-all.
Okay.
When I talk about the golden circle, there are 3 levels to it: what we do, how we do it, and why we do it.
Right.
The reason I talk about the why is because that's the piece that's always missing. Because everybody knows what they do. Some people know how they do it, the things that you think make you stand out from the competition, your differentiating value proposition, whatever you want to call it. But very, very few people, if ever, think about or talk about why they do what they do. And my point is that you cannot achieve or find long-term success or fulfillment unless all 3 pieces are there. So of course, the heavy lifting happens. If all you have is why and no work, then you live on a hippie commune, and everything's kumbaya, and you don't get any work done, which is also very unfulfilling after some time. And if all you do is what and how, then you have a job rather than a calling. You know, it is grunt work as opposed to something that matters. Why contextualizes the importance of all of that hard lifting. You know, if you work very, very hard for something you hate or don't believe in, it's called stress. If you work very, very hard for something you do believe in or love, it's called passion. And that's what the why does. It fuels, it gives you the energy to get all that heavy lifting done. Now, you said something else. You said there are just jobs people don't like or something to that effect.
There are some jobs no one would like.
Yeah, that's just not true. I think that we have this sort of very ethnocentric sense of our own, like, well, clearly people like things like working in tech, and how can anybody like working as a janitor or something? And it's completely nonsense. It's really judgmental, actually, of us to even think that way, because again,
I asked the question.
Right.
Awesome, fail.
Because I know so many high-tech people and bankers and white-collar and, you know, movie business and glamour who hate their lives, hate their jobs, hate their colleagues, hate their bosses, and need pills to sleep.
Wow.
Okay? I know plenty of them. They're superficial, glamorous, wonderful lives. And I know plenty of people who work in factories with their hands, and they stand at a machine all day and are grateful for the company they work for, and they love their colleagues, and they feel cared for, and they love coming to work because they feel like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. It has nothing to do with the work they do. It has to do with the reason they come to work. That's the point.
You can see why it started a movement, obviously. But let's get back to you. So you start to see, I'm assuming that it's catching on like wildfire, and you get this book deal, and now people want you to speak all the time. Did you change your business model or sell your old business, or did you just transition because you were doing marketing consulting?
Yeah, so the marketing business happened 3 years prior. So I had the marketing business, lost my passion for what I was doing. That crisis was the spark that helped me find this thing called the why and define the golden circle. And I fell in love with this idea and would literally go to my friends' apartments and give talks to their friends about this thing called the why, and I would help people find their why for $100 on the side. That's how it began.
Okay.
And people just kept asking me to speak, and I kept saying yes. So I was actually giving the talk for about 3 years before any book or TED Talk.
Gotcha.
And that's when I abandoned my marketing business, because when I realized I could make a living doing this, that people will pay me to speak and will also invite me to come and consult, I guess. But as it started to gain popularity, then the question was, what do I want to do? And I made the conscious decision not to build a consultancy, because I didn't want, for me, spreading the message was much more important. So I sort of took on the identity of sort of a modern day preacher. I had a purpose, I had a cause, I had a calling, I had something I believed in that I was going to preach, I was going to share it, I was going to stand on my bully pulpit, and I was going to look for followers to help me spread this gospel. I mean, that's really the angle I took. And that's what we've done. And the reason the message has spread is because that's what we decided we would do. I could have become a consultant and made a nice little nest egg, but this seemed like the right thing to do. I'd rather more people find a job they love and feel inspired when they wake up every day, not just the few people I got to help. So.
And when you're that passionate and that committed, I feel like it would be interesting or maybe challenging or difficult to bring on team members.
How so?
Well, because it's like your baby. I mean, everyone's business is their baby, so a lot of people have questions about hiring. But what's your advice for starting to build a team?
I think the difference between an entrepreneur who cannot achieve scale, which is different from success. You can make a ton of money, but that's not scale. It's just money, right? Versus being able to cross that little chasm and find that tipping point where it can really gain scale, is the ability to let go. You know, I'd been chief cook and bottle washer. I had done every job. And so when I started needing help because I could no longer do every job, I didn't have the time or the energy, I wanted to tell everybody how I used to do it and have them do it that way. That's about like assigning tasks. That's not assigning responsibility. That's not letting go. And it was a slow, uncomfortable process. It's not like tomorrow morning I'm just going to let go. You know, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's a very uncomfortable process. I assume you use the analogy of this is your baby, I assume it's something like when your kids grow up and leave the house, or when they become old enough to drive and they gain some independence. Like, we'd like to tell them what to do, what to eat, when to go to bed, when to have a shower, but you kind of lose that. And some parents struggle with that, and it creates tension in the relationship with their kids. And some parents slowly embrace that their kids are adults, and it's the same kind of transition where people come on and you realize that they care and that they're smart and that they're good at what they do and that they want to learn, and so they want to do things they've never done before also. They don't have to be experts in everything. And you let go a little bit and they do an amazing job, and you let go a little bit and then you let go a little bit and they screw it all up, and you say, okay, try again. And the more they feel that you care about their success, the more I started to feel that I cared about the success of those around me. It became very easy for me to simply say, just take care of this, and whatever happens is fine, and every decision you make I love, you know?
Yeah, which this is kind of easily segueing us into your next book, but before we go there, I was listening to, I'm sure you're familiar with Liz Gilbert, and I was listening to her in an interview, and she was talking about after the massive success of Eat, Pray, Love, kind of like a little bit of an identity crisis, you know. Did you have that after what became, I mean, your book became what it is?
So it's funny you bring up Elizabeth Gilbert, because her TED Talk actually helped me not go through that. So people would come up to me and say, how are you going to do another TED Talk as successful as the first one? And the answer was, I'm not. That was an accident. I won the lottery. Like, I won the lottery, and I can't plan to win the lottery again. Like, that's not how it works. And the success of Start With Why, again, like, I can't plan that. Like, you can't plan for something that was an accident. So I had actually completely divorced myself of any notion that I had to produce something that was better or more successful than the first work. And so when I set out to write Leaders Eat Last, the only goal was to share every lesson that I'd been learning on the topic of trust and cooperation, and do the best job I can of communicating those ideas with literally no concern or thought whether it would be more successful than the first one. I didn't mind. I didn't care. And I feel that way about all my work, which is, you know, the why has sort of gone off and done its own thing, and it's like my kid leaving the house. I'm like just so proud of it. You know?
So tell us just about your actual writing process. Do you sit in a room for a certain chunk every day, or, you know, how do you actually get the book done? I'm very
envious of writers with discipline, you know, who treat it like a job from 9 to 5, or set a goal every day of writing, you know, whatever, 1,000 words, 2,000 words, and they do that. That's not my process. My process is best defined as days of guilt and self-loathing, punctuated by hours of sheer brilliance. And the problem is I don't know when those hours will strike. And so I will sit at home and watch TV and hate myself for not getting any work done, and I won't go out for dinner in case one of these things strikes, and then I sit at home and watch TV and say I should have gone out for dinner, and then I would see my friends, and then the next night I go out for dinner, and then I have an idea and I'm writing on tablecloths, and it's more of a creative, mad process than it is a disciplined process.
I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of writers probably.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Like, I don't pretend that I have the discipline. I don't like sit at a desk and stare at a screen or write. I can't write, you know, some writers, they can write 2,000 words a day even if it's junk. I can't do that. If I'm writing, I have to like what I'm writing. And if I don't like what I'm writing, then I stop writing.
Interesting. Now, your second book, Leaders Eat Last, if you guys haven't heard the story that prompted that, you told it so brilliantly to Marie Forleo. So I don't want to take time on that today, but I'll link it. You guys go watch it, because I was like on the edge of my seat through your whole journey through Afghanistan. And just take note of the way he tells stories, okay, for anybody who's a speaker or you're working on your writing, because I was just riveted. Thank you. Then after, in that book, I kind of want you to just touch on what you feel like are leadership challenges for people who are still very small. So 5 employees, 10 employees, because a lot of times, you know, they're growing so fast, they're trying to keep up. There's no culture to speak of. There's nothing. What's your advice to them?
So when we're junior or when we're solo, we only really have to be good at whatever it is we claim we're offering. Like, that's pretty much it, you know? And as you gain seniority, or as you have to bring on more people, you have to go through a transition. You don't have a choice. Some people make it quickly, some people make it slowly, and some people will never make it at all, which is you now go through the transition where you're no longer responsible for the job, you're now responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. Right? So I love talking to CEOs and say, you know, what's your priority? Say, my customer. I'm like, you haven't talked to a customer in 10 years.
Yeah.
You're not responsible for the customer. You're responsible for the people who are responsible for the customer. You know? There's not a senior executive on the planet that's responsible for the results. Zero. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. And so we work so hard and get advanced degrees on how to do the job, but really there's very little out there to train us to do the job of leadership, which is to let go of the results and take care of the people who are responsible for the results. Now, when you have a small business, you actually have to do both, where you do have responsibility for the job because you're still in the game, but now you also have responsibility for people and their jobs. And so you have to dance that line. And if you do too much of one, then the thing collapses. And if you do too much of the other, then you're a micromanager and everybody wants you out of their way and everybody hates coming to work for you, and the thing collapses. And so you really have to find that balance. And as the organization grows, what you've been doing is practicing. And as the organization grows and you stop doing the jobs you used to do, you now take care of the people who do the jobs. So, you know, you become a much better leader. But it's a process. It's a transition. It's an education. It's not an event. It's not like, today I'm a leader. I hired, you know, I've got 5 people, I'm a leader. It doesn't work that way. So, but it takes it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of energy. Leadership is it is more difficult than the business, right? Because you can back plan something or you can figure out how to fill your pipeline. But how do you deal with the whims and insecurities and egos and ambitions of a human being who, no matter how great they are, they have a fight with their spouse, or there's a family tragedy, or they didn't get enough sleep, and everything's horrible.
Right.
You know? Like, they come to work with all of that stress and anxiety, and human beings are messy. I wish it were so neat. And so it's like, leadership is really, really hard work. And I equate leadership to parenting, where everyone on the planet has the capacity to be a parent. It doesn't mean everybody should be a parent, and it doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent. Leadership is the same. Everybody has the capacity to be a leader. Doesn't mean that everybody wants to be a leader, and it doesn't mean that everybody should be a leader. So if you don't want to be a parent, don't have kids. If you don't want to be a leader, then don't push your career to have people report to you, because you then don't have a choice. Like, if you accidentally have a kid, congratulations, you are now a parent.
Right. Yep.
You know, so if you find yourself in a leadership position, you either give it up to somebody else and say, and I know plenty of entrepreneurs who do that. They bring in presidents to run their companies, and they like to be the creative director. They like to be in the weeds because they're good at it, and they don't want to run the organization. They don't want to lead the people.
Right.
It's hard. And you stop getting to do the stuff that you like doing anyway. You have to like leadership. So it's an education. And the best leaders I know, like truly remarkable leaders some of them have achieved amazing things, and they command unbelievable love and loyalty from their people. They get all the theories that I talk about. They get it. They do it. I learn from them. None of them consider themselves experts. They all consider themselves students. And when anybody says to you, you know, I'm an expert at this, I think I know what I'm doing, run. Right?
Yeah.
It's the ones who understand that every day as a leader is an education. And so all the leaders I know talk about leadership. Like, we sit down and we talk about it. Like, I want to hear what they're doing, they want to hear what I'm doing. Like, we talk about it because we're learning.
Right.
I may be a more advanced student than some, but I'm still a student.
Right.
And so when you have that perspective, you show up every single day as a student. You have a student's mind, a student's mentality. And so you're constantly, like, you watch the news, or you watch a press conference, or you meet someone, and you're constantly paying attention to how they answered something or how they did something, agreeing and disagreeing, because you're in student mode. If you're in expert mode, you just ignore the world around you. So all the best leaders I know see it as a constant, everyday education and a daily practice.
Student mode. I like that.
Student mode.
So now you are a leader and you have a team.
Play one on TV.
What is the average day like for Simon Sinek?
Oh, I wish I had an average day. Actually, no, I don't. I don't have an average day. my days are, I like to say that one of the reasons I love my job is I don't know what I do every Monday. I don't really have a sense of routine. There are lots of things that I have to do, and sometimes things go in spurts, so sometimes I'm on the road, sometimes I'm working directly with organizations or leaders within those organizations, sometimes I'm writing. I have a strategic partnership with EY, Ernst & Young, where they're taking my IP and we're developing it into products and services so we can give it to more people so that they can implement it more easily. And I'm actually a part of something that they do every year called SGF, which in the entrepreneur world I think is very, very well known. I love that kind of stuff. So I have responsibilities there as well. We're developing stuff together, which is fun. So there's no routine. But like anybody else, my struggles are the same. That sometimes I have what I call very productively unproductive days, where there's something I have to get done, and I get done 15 other things, but not the thing I need to get done. I'm the same.
Do you have any daily rituals or habits that you think have helped in your success?
I mean, as I said before, I'm very good about asking for help or bouncing ideas off someone. You know, even if I'm, you know, rarely are we 100% sure about it, but even if I'm 90% sure about something, I'll call up somebody on my team and be like, so this is what's happened and this is what I'm thinking of doing. And sometimes just me getting to say it out loud is like, okay, no, that's actually a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm very good about using sounding boards, even for things that I'm fairly confident about. So I do that a lot. It's the basics. I think you got to get a good night's sleep. I think you got to exercise. You know, if you think, one of the big things I changed in my life was I prioritized exercise. So exercise for me goes in my schedule like a meeting. And too many of us treat exercise as something malleable or flexible, where, oh my God, I have this amazing opportunity to meet with this person, I'll move my gym time. I don't. Like, my gym time is in my schedule, and if somebody says, can I meet you at 3 o'clock or later, you know, 6 o'clock, whatever, whenever I put it in, sometimes I do it in the middle of the day, I go, I'm sorry, I'm busy that time. They don't have to know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm busy. So can we do it tomorrow?
Yeah.
And things started to get a lot easier for me when I prioritized my body and my health equally as my work. So that's a big one. And I'm really good about separating from my telephone and from email. My phone doesn't go bing, buzz, beep for every notification. I keep my phone ringer off almost all the time. I don't know when I get emails. I'll check later. Like, it doesn't, my email alert is actually turned off. So the only way I find out if I got an email is if I go check. My phone won't buzz. And that's on purpose, because I don't want a Pavlovian response. You know, somebody hit reply all, and I got buzzed, and I go like this, and it's like it didn't even matter. And I interrupted something that I actually was focused on, and now I broke that concentration.
Yeah.
I'm really good about putting my phone away and working, not having it on the desk. I'm really good about going out with my friends, or even for meetings, not putting the phone on the desk, not putting the phone on the table, engaging with somebody fully. And it's that practice where people are much more likely to want to help you if they feel that you do something as simple as look them in the eye and give them your full attention, as opposed to one of these deals. Oh yeah, totally. Or my favorite one is the phone rings, they go, I'm not going to get this. It's like, oh, you're so magnanimous, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm really good at prioritizing health. I don't believe in pulling all-nighters. I just don't believe in it. The quality of the work can't be that good anyway, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd rather get at least some sleep and then wake up early and work, you know. And really prioritizing the relationships I have with other people, whether it's a first-time meeting or an old friend. I'm very good about putting my phone away.
Do you feel like you had to give anything up to serve this giant movement?
I've given up a lot, and always consciously. None of the decisions were made by accident. You know, when I made the decision that I was going to spread this message, I knew that it would come at a sacrifice to my personal life. I knew that going in. You know, when you're always on the road, you go out on a date and it goes great, and you go, oh my God, I had so much fun. Are you free in 6 weeks?
Yeah.
You know, you're undateable. There was a sacrifice there. I knew that, and there was a point at which I was sacrificing my health. I fixed that one. But yeah, there were sacrifices I've made. I regret none of them. You know, you make value judgments, and you can pick one. You know, you can't have it all.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to choose this, you're going to have to give up that. So if you want more time, you might have to give up some of the money. If you want more money, then you're going to have to give up some of the time. Like, you know, it's not always that easy. So, and sometimes I juggle with those, you know.
Looking back, what's the best part and the worst part of your journey so far?
Well, the best part is the journey. I mean, this is the most exciting, amazing, wonderful thing that I've ever done. My life is surreal. There's not a single thing that I'm doing or have done that I could have imagined that I would do. I'm grateful for every day. And when everybody says, oh my God, you've done so much, my answer has been the same for the past 10 years, which is, it's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, I'm trying to change the way in which businesses run. I'm trying to undo all of the theories that were popularized in the 80s and 90s. You know, shareholder supremacy, putting the interests of an external constituent ahead of the people inside your company. That's like a coach prioritizing the desires of the fans over the desires of the players. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Well, we have to sell tickets. Sure. Destroy your team and appease a fan for a year or two with a couple promotions, right? So that's what shareholder supremacy is. That was a theory that was proposed in the late 1970s. The use of mass layoffs to balance the books. We're not talking life and death situations here, you know, balancing the books for the year, you know? That was that did not exist in the United States prior to the 1980s.
Yeah.
So they have all of these theories, rank and yank, terrible, destroys the inside of a corporate culture. Or pitting people against each other. I like to get my people to compete against each other. No, compete with, not compete against. You know? There's all of these theories that were popularized in the 80s and 90s, all in the name of selfish desires that have really done long-term damage to our economy, to the way we feel about our jobs, the way we feel about each other, the way we feel about ourselves. Depression is massively on the rise in our company. If any company goes look at what they're spending on healthcare, you know, from, you know, companies can see what drugs they're buying in their healthcare plans. You'll see that there is a precipitous rise in. Have a precipitous rise? Exponential rise in depression drugs. In fact, it's the number one thing that we're treating in companies. So I'm trying to completely undo an entire philosophy of how we do business that is the norm in the United States and other places in the world. Like, we don't even think that anything's bad when layoffs are, they announce layoffs.
Yeah.
It's awful, right? So no matter how much I've accomplished, I stand at the foot of the mountain and I go, oh my God, I'm so much more to do.
Yeah.
And I love that. I guess the worst part is that, what is the worst part? I don't know. I mean, I have bad days, but that's not, I mean, like, you get through those, and I have days where I think I can't do it, but you get through those, and I don't know. It's pretty cool.
That's an awesome answer.
Sorry, I wish I had something.
So if you had to give what your number one piece of advice for someone who has a message and they're trying to spread it to the world, what's your number one piece of advice for them?
So spread it. Like, what are you waiting for? Do it. You know, I get this question sometimes, you know, I want to be a public speaker. How do I start? Speak. I don't know. You know, like, it's not about, the problem is, are you speaking because you have a message to spread? Or are you speaking because you want to be on TED or become famous or get paid lots of money to stand on a stage? Like, what's your motivation? Like, if your motivation is to be on TED or be famous, I got nothing. I have no idea how you do that, right? But if you have a message to spread, the rule is talk to anyone who will listen. Remember, I started talking for free in the living rooms of my friends. That's how I started.
Yeah.
And somebody said, will you come to my company? And I went, okay. And they paid me a couple $100, you know. And the first time somebody ever offered me any sort of real money, I didn't realize this was an industry that I could accept the money, so I gave it to charity. Like, they gave me a big check, and because that's what I thought you did, right? So I didn't realize I could make a living. So even today, I don't define myself as a speaker. I speak. And if I stop speaking, I still have an identity. In other words, my identity comes from my why. My identity comes from my message. My identity comes from the thing that I want to talk about, that I want to write about. I'm an author technically, because I happen to have written a couple of books. But do I cease to have an identity if I never write another book again? What if I never give another speech? What happens to my identity? I'm fine. So I've never wanted to be a speaker or an author. I just want to spread a message. And I'm completely agnostic as to how I spread that message, right? So if you want to do these things, then you have to wake up to do that thing, not to be someone or be that thing, you know? So the question is, what is the message you're trying to spread? And if you believe desperately in that message, your passion will show through. And if your passion shows through because you believe desperately in that message, people will invite you because they're attracted to your passion and they like your message. And if you practice and you become clearer and more articulate in how you explain your ideas, and other people go, I understand. I understand so clearly, I can tell someone your idea without you in the room. Then what happens is your message starts to spread without you.
Yeah.
And then somebody calls you up and says, will you come and deliver your message that I've heard about over here? And you go, I would love to, thank you.
Yeah.
And the thing grows.
We'll be back in just a second with Fast Facts. Man, there is so much we can learn from that interview, but here are my keys to success
From my interview with Simon Sinek. Number 1, be honest with yourself and authentic with others. He had to realize what he was good at and what he wasn't good at. He says once he started to get honest and just spread his message with others, things started to take off. He didn't try to build a platform or become an author. He just started to share his ideas and focus on what he was good at. Number 2, be patient and persistent. Sinek started really small, sharing his message in friends' apartments for $100 on the side. He just started sharing his message, and he says if you want to create a movement, just get up and start sharing your message. But of course, you have to consider why you want to start a movement and realize that it takes a lot of time and sacrifice. He gave up a lot in his personal life in order to spread this message so quickly and so powerfully. Number 3, be passionate, focused, and passion-focused. Again, we have to talk about why if we're talking about Simon Sinek. He literally started practicing the things he wrote about. He would introduce himself by talking about what he believed in instead of what he did. He says if you just start sharing and practice how to share your passion clearly, other people will start to get on board and it will begin to grow. Number 4, be willing to let go and keep learning. He says that the entrepreneurs that reach a tipping point realize that they have to let go and truly delegate and be able to tell their team members that they can make their own decisions and that they'll be fine with the decisions that they make. And part of letting go is admitting you don't have all the answers. He says that the best leaders he knows are constantly in student mode and that learning is a daily practice for them. Number 5, be practical, be present, and stay grateful. He says to focus on the simple things when it comes to your health, like diet, exercise, getting a lot of sleep. Then he says focus on being present. He puts away his phone. He engages with people. And lastly, he called himself lucky multiple times, even though he worked for 3 years on his idea before starting to get any sort of traction with his book deal or his speaking gigs. He was just sharing his message with people in their homes. This is someone who worked hard to start sharing his message, and instead he says he got lucky. That is a sign of someone who's grateful. And he says he's living his dream and is grateful for every day. And we are back for Fast Facts. Just try and answer as quickly as you can, okay, without really thinking about it.
Okay.
All right, what is the wallpaper on your phone?
It's a photograph. It's an art. I'm an art nut, so it's a photograph of a girl in a pool, but it's the pool is decorated like it's a house. It's hard to explain.
Okay, so
it's
art.
Cool.
We're gonna go with like
art.
a
Just
cool.
go art.
Okay.
Yeah, it's art.
What's the last thing you Googled?
Probably a restaurant.
Something nearby.
Yeah.
Scrabble or charades?
Oh, Scrabble, hands down.
Favorite book?
A Man's Search for Meaning.
Favorite fiction book?
Alice in Wonderland.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
One word you're guilty of saying too often?
Probably the word inspire. It comes up a lot.
Who is the last person that you called or texted?
My sister.
What was the last awkward situation you were in?
Pick a day. I mean.
Last vacation you took?
Bahamas.
Favorite hobby?
Photography.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Early bird or night owl?
It's changed. I used to be a night owl.
Now
I'm like
a hybrid?
I'm kind of a hybrid, yeah.
Winter or summer?
Winter.
Wine or beer?
Wine.
Pancakes or waffles?
Don't care.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
Game of Thrones, but I don't feel guilty.
Yeah, me either. Marie Forleo said the same thing, and I agree. Favorite snack?
I like those popcorners. You know what are they called? They like the popcorn things, sweet thing. Those are good.
Interesting. I'll try and Google that for the rest of us and link to whatever it is you're talking about.
They're good. That's what they're called, isn't it? I think they're
favorite cereal?
I'm a cereal person. I have many boxes of cereal, and I live by myself. And so there's no favorite cereal. It's the art of mixing cereal.
You know who was the same way? Seth Godin.
Cerealogist is what I am.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mix cereals. There's usually raisins in there. There's usually maybe sometimes there's fruit. I'm going through a goat's milk phase right now.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What is your favorite music right now?
I have an eclectic taste in music. I mean, this is embarrassing. The Hamilton soundtrack. I mean, yeah.
I wondered if you were going to say that because it's like a phenomenon,
really,
and I love that you just came clean and were
I
honest about that.
myself.
It's
It's really good.
Your friends are going to
I'd
tease
like
you.
to sing it all the time.
You sing it out? Fantastic.
Like to the point where my friends are like, okay, you can shut up now.
Amazing. Biggest pet peeve?
I got a bunch of those. I hate it when, I mean, how myopic are we talking here? I hate open cabinets, when people leave cabinets open. Like when I walk into someone's house and cabinets are open, I will go in and just like close all their kitchen cabinets. Like,
don't come over.
My
husband keeps getting on to me.
It makes me really uncomfortable that
my
cabinets
mind
are open.
is just on to the next task.
No, so is mine,
care
but you can
about
just
the
close
cabinet.
the cabinet.
I know.
Like
My
I'll open a
husband
cabinet,
agrees
take something
with
out, close a cabinet, open a cabinet, take something out, close a cabinet. Yeah, open cabinet.
I get that.
That's
my husband
weird. I don't know
is the
I don't know where
same.
it comes from, but it's true.
What were you doing right before this interview?
I was working with the wonderful people at EY, figuring out what we're going to do at SGF.
And what will you be doing after this interview?
I don't know, actually.
All right.
To be honest, I don't know.
Well, again, thank you so much. This has been incredible. It's been an awesome time. Thank you for fitting
My
us
pleasure.
in. I'm Kelsey Humphreys. This is Simon Sinek, and this has been The Pursuit. Don't forget, guys, there are 3 ways to support the show. You can subscribe here on YouTube, you can leave a comment, and you can go subscribe to the weekly emails to go behind the scenes and get extra info from each episode.